tree work going on around my area, so if you guys hear noises, I'm sorry. I can't do anything about it. So, you then, beloved ones, being forewarned, watch, lest you also fall from your own steadfastness, being led away with the delusion of the lawless. People are always talking about the great delusion. Some people say, oh, it's the spherical earth and it's NASA because NASA is Nashah in Hebrew and that means deception. Well, this right here says being led away with the delusion of the lawless. So the lawless are the people who have thrown out the Torah of God. These are the lawless, the Sunday worshipers who say that their form of worship is acceptable to a Hebrew God, Jewish God. I'm not going to try and put that. However you want to interpret that section, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob has told us being led away with the delusion of lawlessness. This is from 2 Peter 3:17. So let's read this whole section real quick because this is one letter to one group of people. Now, 1 second. Hey guys. So, coming out of Calvary, so we just need to check this out.
3:26 it says, for you are all sons of Elohim through belief in Messiah Yeshua. For as many of you have immersed into Messiah, have put on Messiah, there is no Jew nor Greek, there is no slave nor free, there is no male nor female, for you are all one in Messiah Yeshua. And if you are of Messiah, then you are the seed of Abraham, and heirs according to the promise. So now he's saying that the seed is through Messiah, but it's the seed that was promised to Abraham. So we've got all these wonderful prophecies that are now coming to head. And I want to go.
So we know that the letter of the law kills, but the spirit of the law gives life. You can go right here. Matthew 5. We're going to use verse 17 in this one also. Do not think I came to destroy the Torah or the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to complete. For truly I say to you, until the heavens and the earth pass away, which they're still outside, the heavens and the earth are still here, one jot or tittle shall by no means pass from the Torah till all be done. Whoever then breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches men to do so shall be called least in the reign of the heavens. But whoever does the teachings, whoever is doing the Torah and teaching other men to do the Torah, the spirit of the Torah, not the letter of the law, the spirit of the law that we just saw inside that other video, whoever then breaks one of the least of these commands and teaches men that they can break these commands, right? Whoever then breaks one of these commands and teaches men so. So whoever then breaks one of the least of these commands and teaches men to break the commands shall be called least in the reign of the heavens. But whoever does and teaches them shall be called great in the reign of the heavens. For I say to you, that unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and the Pharisees, right, those are some of the bad guys, you shall by no means enter into the reign of the heavens. You heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not murder, and whoever murders shall be liable to judgment. But I say to you that whoever is wroth with his brother without a cause shall be liable to judgment, and whoever says to his brother, Raka, shall be liable to the Sanhedrin, but whoever says, you fool, shall be liable to fire of Gehenna. Interesting that, but whoever says, you fool, and then we have Cody Asbury that had I don't remember what the album cover was. So Corey Asbury that's already singing to Shekinah, knowing Shekinah is Lucifer, and it says right here, you fool shall be liable for fire of Gehenna, and he's using fool something on like the foolishness of God or something like that. Go and look for Corey Asbury and put in the word fool, and then his album cover, the O's are a Vesica Pisces. He's using semiotics in that spot. So, you fool shall be liable to fire of Gehenna. If then you bring a gift to the altar and there remember that your brother holds whatever against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go. First make peace with your brother and then come and offer your gift. Okay, so we know that Yeshua has now said he did not come to do away with the Torah. This now, beloved ones, the second letter I wrote to you, in which I stir up your sincere minds to remember the words previously spoken by the set-apart prophets, those who walked with Yeshua, saw him face to face, set apart. And of the command of the Master and Savior spoken by our emissaries, knowing this first, that mockers shall come in the last days with mocking, walking according to their own lusts, and saying, where is the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, and all continues as from the beginning of creation, for they chose to have this hidden from them, that the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water and in the water, by the word of Elohim, through which the world at that time was destroyed, being flooded with water, and the present heavens and earth are treasured up by the same word, being kept for fire, judgment, right? Fire, to the judgment and destruction of wicked men. But beloved ones, let not this one matter be hidden from you, that with Jehovah 1 day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as 1 day. Jehovah is not slow to regard the promise, as some count slowness, but is patient towards us, not wishing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. Teshuvah, turning back towards God's face, God's word, God's will done, God's way. But the day of Jehovah shall come as a thief in the night, in which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with intense heat, and the earth and its works that are in it shall be burned up. Seeing all of these are to be destroyed in this way, what kind of people ought you to be in set-apart behavior and reverence, looking for and hastening the coming of the day of Elohim, through which the heavens shall be destroyed, being set on fire, and the elements melt with intense heat. But according to his promise, we wait for a renewed heavens and a renewed earth in which righteousness will dwell. So then, beloved ones, looking forward to this, do your utmost to be found by him in peace, spotless and blameless, and reckon the patience of our master as deliverance, as also our beloved brother Shaul, which is Paul, wrote to you according to the wisdom. So Peter is telling us that this is wisdom, that Paul wrote to you according to the wisdom given to him, and as in all his letters, speaking in them concerning these matters, in which some are hard to understand. Peter is warning us that Paul's words are hard to understand, which those who are untaught, that would be untaught in the faith of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, which those who are untaught and unstable twist to their own destruction, as they do also the other scriptures. So then, beloved ones, look forward to this, do your utmost to be found by him in peace, spotless and blameless, and reckon the patience of our master as deliverance, as our beloved brother Paul wrote to you according to the wisdom given to him, as also in all his letters, speaking in them concerning these matters, in which some are hard to understand, and which those who are untaught and unstable twist Paul's words to their own destruction. In other translations, as also in his letters, speaking to them concerning these matters, in which some are hard to understand, which some are untaught, or who are untaught and unstable twist to their own destruction, as they twist the other scriptures. You then, beloved ones, that would be the people who are in the faith, being forewarned, we've been warned right here in 2 Peter 3:17, lest you also fall from your own steadfastness, being led away by the delusion of the lawless. Those people who have thrown away the Torah and don't understand that we're no longer under the letter of the law, we're under the spirit of the law. But growing in the favor and knowledge of our Master and Savior, Yeshua, Messiah, to him be the esteem, both now and to the day that abides. Amen. So the people who are under the delusion, according to 2 Peter 3:17, the people under the delusion are the people of the lawless, those who have thrown out the law of Torah, because the law of Torah was our instructions on how God wanted us to live. So, one second. Let's look at this real quick. This is talking about one of the apostles came into Jesus and said, one said to him, "See, your mother and your brother are standing outside seeking to speak with you." But he answering said to the one who spoke to him, "Who is my mother and who are my brothers?" And having stretched out his hand towards his taught ones, he said, "See my mother and my brothers, for whoever does the desire of my Father who is in heaven is my brother and sister and mother. The desire of God who's in heaven is the Torah that was given to us through Moses." That's what this is speaking about. Jesus is saying, who are my brothers and my sisters and who's my family? Those who do what the Father has already taught us to do and given us the Torah to follow. Those people who follow that are my brother, my sister, and my mother, according to Matthew 12:50.
Josiah. So, part of God's story is about a king named Josiah, and it goes like this. Josiah became the king of the Israelites, God's special family, when he was just 8 years old. Even though he was a kid, he ruled the whole southern part of the kingdom called Judah. Josiah's dad, King Amon, had gotten into deep trouble and been hated by the people who worked for him. He hadn't followed God at all. In fact, like many kings before him, Amon ignored God and worshipped false gods called idols. All over the land, he built idols and places to worship idols. By the time Josiah became king, most of God's family didn't pay attention to God anymore. But Josiah was different. When he was 16, he started to follow God and look for ways to obey him. Then, 4 years later, he realized that all the idols were stealing the worship that belonged to God. So he began to get rid of them. A few years after that, he decided to really focus on worshiping God by rebuilding a beautiful temple to the Lord. That's when something happened that caught Josiah by surprise. It all started when Josiah sent an official who worked for him to the temple to pay the people rebuilding it. While the official was visiting, a priest who worked there told him, "I have found the book of the law in the Lord's temple." Josiah couldn't believe the priest discovered a whole book full of God's own words. When Josiah heard the laws, he realized how much he and the Israelite people had been disobeying God. He felt so sorry that he tore his clothes and cried in distress. He knew God had every right to be furious with him. To figure out what to do next, Josiah sent the priest who found the book to talk to a prophet named Huldah. Remember, prophets talk to God, then share what God says. Josiah wanted to know if there was any chance God would forgive them. God told Huldah that the Israelites deserved to be punished for disobeying him over and over and over again. But since Josiah was sorry and wanted to repent, which means turn away from his disobedience and start following God, he could be forgiven. In other words, God had mercy on Josiah. Kids, mercy is forgiving someone even though they don't deserve it. God loves to give us mercy when we repent. When Josiah heard that, he called together a crowd of people, took them to the temple, and read them the entire book of the law. Then he promised to obey the Lord. And because Josiah was king, the people wanted to be like him and obey the Lord too. Now, when Josiah obeyed, he really obeyed. He had every single idol removed. He destroyed every place that had ever been used to worship idols. He collected all the things that had been used in idol worship, in temples and even in people's houses, burned them, and took the ashes far away. Basically, he got rid of every last trace of anything that had ever been used to worship false gods. And because Josiah obeyed God, guess what the Bible says about him? It says, never before had there been a king like Josiah who turned to the Lord with all his heart and soul and strength. And there has never been a king like him since. This 8-year-old kid was the best king Israel had ever had. All because he loved God's words and obeyed them. And that's Josiah became king. He was 8. Josiah followed God. He rebuilt a temple for the Lord. A priest discovered a book of God's law. Josiah read it. He had been disobeying God. Josiah was sorry. He deserved to be punished. Josiah repented. God showed Josiah mercy. He obeyed God with his whole heart. There were no other kings like him. And that's a part of God's story.
And Moshe called all Israel and said to them, Hear, O Israel, the laws and right rulings which I speak in your hearing today, and you shall learn them and guard to do them. Yahweh our Elohim made a covenant with us in Horeb. Yahweh did not make this covenant with our fathers, but with us, those who are here today, all of us who are alive. Yahweh spoke with you face to face on the mountain from the midst of the fire. I stood between Yahweh and you at that time to declare to you the word of Yahweh. For you were afraid because of the fire, and you did not go up the mountain, saying, I am Yahweh your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, out of the house of bondage. You have no other mighty ones against my face. You do not make for yourself a carved image, any likeness of which is in the heavens above, or which is in the earth beneath, or which is in the waters under the earth. You do not bow down to them nor serve them. For I, Yahweh your Elohim, am a jealous El, visiting the crookedness of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me, but showing loving commitment to thousands, to those who love me and guard my commands. You do not bring the name of Yahweh your Elohim to naught, for Yahweh does not leave him unpunished who brings his name to naught. Guard the Sabbath day, to set it apart, as Yahweh your Elohim commanded you. 6 days you labor and shall do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath of Yahweh your Elohim. You do not do any work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your ox, nor your donkey, nor any of your cattle, nor your stranger who is within your gates, so that your male servant and your female servant rest as you do. And you shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Mitzrayim, and that Yahweh your Elohim brought you out from there by a strong hand and by an outstretched arm. Therefore Yahweh your Elohim commanded you to perform the Sabbath day. Respect your father and your mother, as Yahweh your Elohim has commanded you, so that your days are prolonged, and so that it is well with you on the soil which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you. You do not murder, you do not commit adultery, you do not steal, you do not bear false witness against your neighbor, you do not covet your neighbor's wife, nor do you desire your neighbor's house, his field, nor his male servant, nor his female servant, his ox, nor his donkey, or whatever belongs to your neighbor. These words Yahweh spoke to all your assembly in the mountain from the midst of the fire, of the cloud, and of the thick darkness, with a loud voice, and he added no more. And he wrote them on 2 tablets of stone, and gave them to me. And it came to be, when you heard the voice from the midst of the darkness, while the mountain was burning with fire, that you came near to me, all the heads of your tribes and your elders, and said, See, Yahweh our Elohim has shown us his esteem and his greatness, and we have heard his voice from the midst of the fire. Today we have seen that Elohim speaks with man, and he lives. And now, why should we die? For this great fire is consuming us. If we hear the voice of Yahweh our Elohim any more, then we shall die. For who is there of all flesh who has heard the voice of the living Elohim speaking from the midst of the fire, as we have, and does live? You go near, and hear all that Yahweh our Elohim says, and speak to us all that Yahweh our Elohim says to you, and we shall hear and do it. And Yahweh heard the voice of your words when you spoke to me, and Yahweh said to me, I have heard the voice of the words of this people which they have spoken to you. They have done well in all that they have spoken. Oh, that they had such a heart in them to fear me and to guard all my commands always, so that it might be well with them and with their children forever. Go, say to them, return to your tents, but you, stand here by me and let me speak to you all the commands and the laws and the right rulings which you are to teach them, and they shall do them in the land which I am giving them to possess. And you shall guard to do as Yahweh your Elohim has commanded you. Do not turn aside to the right or to the left. Walk in all the ways which Yahweh your Elohim has commanded you, so that you live and it be well with you, and you shall prolong your days in the land which you possess. Devarim chapter 6. And this is the command, the laws and right rulings which Yahweh your Elohim has commanded, to teach you to do in the land which you are passing over to possess, so that you fear Yahweh your Elohim, to guard all his laws and his commands which I command you, you and your son and your grandson, all the days of your life, and that your days be prolonged. And you shall hear, O Israel, and shall guard to do, that it might be well with you, and that you increase greatly, as Yahweh Elohim of your fathers has spoken to you, in a land flowing with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, Yahweh our Elohim, Yahweh is one. And you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up, and shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes, and you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. And it shall be, when Yahweh your Elohim brings you into the land of which he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Yitzchak, and to Yaakov, to give you great and good cities which you did not build, and houses filled with all kinds of goods which you did not fill, and wells dug which you did not dig, vineyards and olive trees which you did not plant, and you shall eat and be satisfied. Be on guard, lest you forget Yahweh who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim from the house of bondage. Fear Yahweh your Elohim, and serve him, and swear by his name. Do not go after other mighty ones, the mighty ones of the peoples who are all around you. For Yahweh your Elohim is a jealous El in your midst, lest the displeasure of Yahweh your Elohim burn against you. Then he shall destroy you from the face of the earth. Do not try Yahweh your Elohim as you tried him at Massah. Diligently guard the commands of Yahweh your Elohim, and his witnesses and his laws which he has commanded you. And you shall do what is right and good in the eyes of Yahweh, that it might be well with you. And you shall go in and possess the good land of which Yahweh swore to your fathers, to drive out all your enemies from before you, as Yahweh has spoken. When your son asks you in time to come, saying, What is the meaning of the witnesses and the laws and the right rulings which Yahweh our Elohim has commanded you? Then you shall say to your son, We were slaves of Pharaoh in Mitzrayim, and Yahweh brought us out of Mitzrayim with a strong hand. And Yahweh sent signs and wonders great and grievous upon Mitzrayim, upon Pharaoh, and upon all his household, before our eyes. And he brought us out from there, to bring us in, to give us the land of which he swore to our fathers. And Yahweh commanded us to do all these laws, to fear Yahweh our Elohim, for our good always, to keep us alive as it is today. And it is righteousness for us when we guard to do all this command, before Yahweh our Elohim, as he has commanded us. Devarim chapter 7. When Yahweh your Elohim brings you into the land which you go to possess, he shall also clear away many nations before you, the Hittites and the Girgashites, and the Amorites and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations, greater and mightier than you. And when Yahweh your Elohim gives them over to you, you shall strike them and put them under the ban completely. Make no covenant with them, and show them no favor, and do not intermarry with them. You do not give your daughter to his son, and you do not take his daughter for your son, for he turns your sons away from following me, to serve other mighty ones. Then the displeasure of Yahweh shall burn against you, and promptly destroy you. But this is what you do to them. Break down their slaughter places, and smash their pillars, and cut down their asherim, and burn their carved images with fire. For you are a set-apart people to Yahweh your Elohim. Yahweh your Elohim has chosen you to be a people for himself, a treasured possession, above all the peoples on the face of the earth. Yahweh did not set his love on you, nor choose you because you were more numerous than any other people, for you were the least of all peoples. But because of Yahweh loving you, and because of him guarding the oath which he swore to your fathers, Yahweh has brought you out with a strong hand, and ransomed you from the house of bondage, from the hand of Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitzrayim. And you shall know that Yahweh your Elohim, he is Elohim, the trustworthy El, guarding covenant and loving commitment for 1,000 generations with those who love him, and those who guard his commands, but repaying those who hate him to their face, to destroy them. He does not delay to do so with him who hates him. He repays him to his face. And you shall guard the command and the laws and the right rulings which I command you today to do them. And it shall be, because you hear these right rulings and shall guard and do them, that Yahweh your Elohim shall guard with you the covenant and the loving commitment which he swore to your fathers, and shall love you and bless you and increase you, and shall bless the fruit of your womb and the fruit of your land, your grain and your new wine and your oil, the increase of your cattle and the offspring of your flock, in the land of which he swore to your fathers to give you. Blessed are you above all peoples. There is not going to be a barren man or a barren woman among you, or among your livestock. And Yahweh shall turn away from you all sickness, and put on you none of the evil diseases of Mitzrayim, which you have known, but he shall put them on all those who hate you. And you shall consume all the peoples whom Yahweh your Elohim is delivering over to you. Your eye shall not pardon them. And do not serve their mighty ones, for that is a snare to you. When you say in your heart, These nations are greater than I am unable to drive them out. Do not be afraid of them. Remember well what Yahweh your Elohim did to Pharaoh and to all Mitzrayim, the great trials which your eyes saw, and the signs and the wonders, the strong hand and the outstretched arm, by which Yahweh your Elohim brought you out. Yahweh your Elohim does so to all the peoples of whom you are afraid. And Yahweh your Elohim also sends the hornet among them, until those who are left, who hide themselves from you, are destroyed. Do not be afraid of them, for Yahweh your Elohim, the great and awesome El, is in your midst. And Yahweh your Elohim shall drive out those nations before you, little by little. You are not allowed to destroy them all at once, lest the beasts of the field become too numerous for you. But Yahweh your Elohim shall deliver them over to you, and destroy them with a great destruction, until they are consumed. And he shall give their sovereigns into your hand, and you shall destroy their name from under the heavens. No one is going to be able to stand against you until you have destroyed them. The carved images of their mighty ones you are to burn with fire. Do not covet the silver or gold that is on them, nor take it for yourselves, lest you be snared by it, for it is an abomination to Yahweh your Elohim. And do not bring an abomination into your house, lest you be accursed like it. Utterly loathe it and utterly hate it, for it is accursed. Devarim chapter 8. Guard to do every command which I command you today, that you might live, and shall increase and go in, and shall possess the land of which Yahweh swore to your fathers. And you shall remember that Yahweh your Elohim led you all the way for 40 years in the wilderness, to humble you, prove you, to know what is in your heart, whether you guard his commands or not. And he humbled you, and let you suffer hunger, and fed you with manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, to make you know that man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of Yahweh. Your garments did not wear out on you, nor did your foot swell these 40 years. Thus you shall know in your heart that as a man disciplines his son, so Yahweh your Elohim disciplines you. Therefore you shall guard the commands of Yahweh your Elohim, to walk in his ways and to fear him. For Yahweh your Elohim is bringing you into a good land, a land of streams of water, of fountains and springs that flow out of valleys and hills, a land of wheat and barley, of vines and fig trees, and pomegranates, a land of olive oil and honey, a land in which you eat bread without scarcity, in which you do not lack at all, a land whose stones are iron, and out of whose hills you dig copper. And you shall eat and be satisfied, and shall bless Yahweh your Elohim for the good land which he has given you. Be on guard, lest you forget Yahweh your Elohim by not guarding his commands, and his right rulings, and his laws which I command you today. Lest you eat and shall be satisfied, and build lovely houses and shall dwell in them, and your herds and your flocks increase, and your silver and your gold are increased, and all that you have is increased, that your heart then becomes lifted up, and you forget Yahweh your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, from the house of bondage, who led you through that great and awesome wilderness, fiery serpents and scorpions and thirst, where there was no water, who brought water for you out of the flinty rock, who fed you in the wilderness with manna, which your fathers did not know, in order to humble you and to try you, to do you good in the end. You then shall say in your heart, My power and the strength of my hand have made for me this wealth. But you shall remember Yahweh your Elohim, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth, in order to establish his covenant, which he swore to your fathers, as it is today. And it shall be, if you by any means forget Yahweh your Elohim, and follow other mighty ones, and serve them, and bow yourself to them, I have warned you this day, that you shall certainly perish. Like the nations which Yahweh is destroying before you, so you are to perish, because you did not obey the voice of Yahweh your Elohim. Devarim chapter 9. Hear, O Yisrael, you are passing over the Yarden today, to go in to dispossess nations greater and stronger than yourself, cities great and walled up to the heavens, a people great and tall, the descendants of the Anakim, whom you know, and of whom you heard it said, Who does stand before the descendants of Anak? And you shall know today that Yahweh your Elohim is he who is passing over before you as a consuming fire. He does destroy them and subdue them before you. So you shall dispossess them and destroy them quickly, as Yahweh has said to you. Do not think in your heart, after Yahweh your Elohim has driven them out before you, saying, Because of my righteousness Yahweh has brought me in to possess this land. But it is because of the wrong of these nations that Yahweh is driving them out from before you. It is not because of your righteousness or the uprightness of your heart that you go in to possess their land, but because of the wrong of these nations that Yahweh your Elohim drives them out from before you, in order to establish the word which Yahweh swore to your fathers, to Avraham, to Yitzchak, and to Yaakov. And you shall know that Yahweh your Elohim is not giving you this good land to possess because of your righteousness, for you are a stiff-necked people. Remember, do not forget how you provoked to wrath Yahweh your Elohim in the wilderness, from the day that you came out of the land of Mitzrayim until you came to this place, You have been rebellious against Yahweh. Even in Horeb, you made Yahweh wroth, so that Yahweh was enraged with you to destroy you. When I went up into the mountain to receive the tablets of stone, the tablets of the covenant which Yahweh made with you, then I stayed on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. I did not eat bread, nor did I drink water. Then Yahweh gave me the 2 tablets of stone, written with the finger of Elohim, and on them were all the words which Yahweh had spoken to you on the mountain from the midst of the fire in the day of the assembly. And it came to be, at the end of 40 days and 40 nights, that Yahweh gave me the 2 tablets of stone, the tablets of the covenant. Then Yahweh said to me, Arise, go down quickly from here, for your people, whom you brought out of Mitzrayim, have acted corruptly. They have quickly turned aside from the way which I commanded them. They have made themselves a molded image. And Yahweh spoke to me, saying, I have seen this people, and look, they are a stiff-necked people. Leave me alone, so that I destroy them, and blot out their name from under the heavens, and make of you a nation stronger and greater than they. So I turned and came down from the mountain, and the mountain burned with fire, and the 2 tablets of the covenant were in my 2 hands. And I looked and saw that you had sinned against Yahweh your Elohim, and had made for yourselves a molded calf. You had quickly turned aside from the way which Yahweh had commanded you. And I took the 2 tablets, and threw them out of my 2 hands, and broke them before your eyes. And I fell down before Yahweh, as at the first, 40 days and 40 nights. I did not eat bread, and I did not drink water, because of all your sins which you committed in doing evil in the eyes of Yahweh to provoke him. For I was afraid of the displeasure and rage with which Yahweh was wroth with you, to destroy you. But Yahweh listened to me that time once more, and Yahweh was very enraged with Aharon, to destroy him. So I prayed for Aharon at that time also. And I took your sin, the calf which you had made, and burned it with fire, and crushed it, and ground it very small, until it was as fine as dust. And I threw its dust into the stream that came down from the mountain. And at Taverah, and at Massah, and at Kivroth Hata'avah, you made Yahweh wroth. And when Yahweh sent you from Kadesh Barnea, saying, Go up and possess the land which I have given you, then you rebelled against the mouth of Yahweh your Elohim, and you neither trusted him nor listened to his voice. You have been rebellious against Yahweh from the day that I knew you. So I fell down before Yahweh the 40 days and 40 nights, for I fell down because Yahweh had said he would destroy you. And I prayed to Yahweh and said, O Master Yahweh, do not destroy your people and your inheritance, whom you have ransomed in your greatness, whom you have brought out of Mitzrayim with a strong hand. Remember your servants, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Do not look on the stubbornness of this people, or on their wrong, or on their sin, lest the land from which you brought us should say, because Yahweh was not able to bring them to the land which he promised them, and because he hated them, he has brought them out to kill them in the wilderness. And they are your people and your inheritance, whom you brought out by your great power and by your outstretched arm. Devarim chapter 10. At that time Yahweh said to me, Hew for yourself 2 tablets of stone like the first, and come up to me on the mountain, and you shall make yourself an ark of wood. Then I write on the tablets the words that were on the first tablets, which you broke, and you shall put them in the ark. So I made an ark of acacia wood, hewed 2 tablets. You long to eat meat, put your hands to. Guard yourself, that you do not forsake the Levite as long as you live in your land. When Yahweh your Elohim enlarges your border as he has promised you, and you say, Let me eat meat, because you long to eat meat, you eat as much meat as your being desires. When the place where Yahweh your Elohim chooses to put his name is too far from you, then you shall slaughter from your herd, and from your flock which Yahweh has given you, as I have commanded you, and you shall eat within your gates as much as your being desires. Only, as the gazelle and the deer are eaten, so you are to eat of it. The unclean and the clean alike eat of it. Only, be strong not to eat the blood, for the blood is the life. Do not eat the life with the meat. Do not eat it. You pour it on the earth like water. Do not eat it, that it might be well with you and your children after you, when you do what is right in the eyes of Yahweh. Only, the set-apart gifts which you have and your vowed offerings you are to take up and go to the place which Yahweh chooses. And you shall make your ascending offerings, the meat and the blood, on the slaughter place of Yahweh your Elohim. And the blood of your slaughterings is poured out on the slaughter place of Yahweh your Elohim, and you eat the meat. Guard and obey all these words which I command you, that it might be well with you and your children after you forever, when you do what is good and right in the eyes of Yahweh your Elohim. When Yahweh your Elohim does cut off from before you the nations which you go to dispossess, and you dispossess them and dwell in their land, guard yourself that you are not ensnared to follow them after they are destroyed from before you, and that you do not inquire about their mighty ones, saying, how did these nations serve their mighty ones, and let me do so too? Do not do so to Yahweh your Elohim, for every abomination which Yahweh hates they have done to their mighty ones, for they even burn their sons and daughters in the fire to their mighty ones. All the words I am commanding you, guard to do it. Do not add to it, nor take away from it. Devarim chapter 13. When there arises among you a prophet, or a dreamer of dreams, and he shall give you a sign or a wonder, and the sign or the wonder shall come true, of which he has spoken to you, saying, let us go after other mighty ones, which you have not known, and serve them. Do not listen to the words of that prophet or that dreamer of dreams, for Yahweh your Elohim is trying you to know whether you love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart and with all your being. Walk after Yahweh your Elohim and fear him, and guard his commands and obey his voice, and serve him and cling to him. And that prophet or that dreamer of dreams is put to death, because he has spoken apostasy against Yahweh your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, and ransomed you from the house of bondage, to make you stray from the way in which Yahweh your Elohim commanded you to walk. Thus you shall purge the evil from your midst. When your brother, the son of your mother, or the son of your daughter, or the wife of your bosom, or your friend who is as your own being, entices you secretly, saying, let us go and serve other mighty ones, which you have not known, neither you nor your fathers, of the mighty ones of the people which are all around you, near to you or far off from you, from one end of the earth to the other end of the earth. Do not agree with him or listen to him, nor shall your eye pardon him, nor spare him, or conceal him, but you shall certainly kill him. Your hand is first against him to put him to death, and afterward the hand of all the people, and you shall stone him with stones until he dies, because he sought to entice you away from Yahweh your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, from the house of bondage. And let all Yisrael hear and fear, and not again do any such evil matter as this in your midst. When you hear someone in one of your cities, which Yahweh your Elohim gives you to dwell in, saying, some men, sons of Belial, have gone out of your midst and led the inhabitants of their city astray, saying, let us go and serve other mighty ones whom you have not known. Then you shall inquire, search out, and ask diligently, and see if the matter is true and established, that this abomination was done in your midst. You shall certainly strike the inhabitants of that city with the edge of the sword, putting it under the ban, and all that is in it, and its livestock with the edge of the sword, and gather all its plunder into the middle of the street, and completely burn with fire the city and all its plunder before Yahweh your Elohim. And it shall be a heap forever, never to be built again. And none of that which is put under the ban is to cling to your hand, so that Yahweh turns from the fierceness of his displeasure, and shall show you compassion, love you, and increase you, as he swore to your fathers, when you obey the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, to guard all his commands which I command you today, to do what is right in the eyes of Yahweh your Elohim. Devarim chapter 14. You are the children of Yahweh your Elohim. Do not cut yourselves, nor shave the front of your head for the dead, for you are a set-apart people to Yahweh your Elohim, and Yahweh has chosen you to be a people for himself, a treasured possession above all the peoples who are on the face of the earth. Do not eat whatever is abominable. These are the living creatures which you do eat, ox, sheep, and goat, deer, and gazelle, and roebuck, and wild goat, and mountain goat, and antelope, and mountain sheep, and every beast that has a split hoof divided in two, chewing the cud among the beasts, you do eat. But of those chewing the cud, or those having a split hoof completely divided, you do not eat, such as these, the camel, and the hare, and the rabbit, for they chew the cud, but do not have a split hoof. They are unclean for you. And the pig is unclean for you, because it has a split hoof, but does not chew the cud. You do not eat their flesh, or touch their dead carcasses. These you do eat. Of all that are in the waters, all that have fins and scales you do eat. And whatever does not have fins and scales you do not eat. It is unclean for you. Any clean bird you do eat, but these you do not eat: the eagle, and the vulture, and the black vulture, and the red kite, and the falcon, and the buzzard after their kinds, and every raven after its kind, and the ostrich, and the nighthawk, and the seagull, and the hawk after their kinds, the little owl, and the great owl, and the white owl, and the pelican, and the carrion vulture, and the fisher owl, and the stork, and the heron after its kind, and the hoopoe, and the bat. And every creeping insect that flies is unclean for you. They are not eaten. Any clean bird you do eat. Do not eat whatever dies of itself. Give it to the stranger who is within your gates to eat it, or sell it to a foreigner. For you are a set-apart people to Yahweh your Elohim. Do not cook a young goat in its mother's milk. You shall tithe without fail all the yield of your grain, that the field brings forth year by year, and you shall eat before Yahweh your Elohim in the place where he chooses to make his name dwell, the tithe of your grain and your new wine and your oil and of the firstlings of your herds and your sheep, so that you learn to fear Yahweh your Elohim always. But when the way is too long for you, so that you are not able to bring the tithe, or when the place where Yahweh your Elohim chooses to put his name is too far from you, when Yahweh your Elohim is blessing you, then you shall take it in silver, and shall take the silver in your hand, and go to the place where Yahweh your Elohim chooses. And you shall use the silver for whatever your being desires, for cattle or sheep, for wine or strong drink, for whatever your being desires. And you shall eat there before Yahweh your Elohim, and you shall rejoice, you and your household. And do not forsake the Levite, who is within your gates, for he has no part nor inheritance with you. At the end of every third year you bring out all the tithe of your increase of that year, and store it up within your gates. And the Levite, because he has no portion nor inheritance with you, and the sojourner, and the fatherless, and the widow, who are within your gates, shall come and eat and be satisfied, so that Yahweh your Elohim does bless you in all the work of your hand which you do. Devarim chapter 15. At the end of every 7 years you make a release of debts, and this is the word of the release. Every creditor is to release what he has loaned to his neighbor. He does not require it of his neighbor or his brother, because it is called the release of Yahweh. Of a foreigner you could require it, but your hand is to release whatever is owed by your brother. Only there should be no poor among you, for Yahweh does greatly bless you in the land which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you to possess as an inheritance. Only if you diligently obey the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, to guard to do all these commands which I am commanding you today. For Yahweh your Elohim shall bless you as he promised you, and you shall lend to many nations, but you shall not borrow. And you shall rule over many nations, but they do not rule over you. When there is a poor man with you, one of your brothers, within any of your gates in your land which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you, do not harden your heart, nor shut your hand from your poor brother. For you shall certainly open your hand to him, and certainly lend him enough for his need, whatever he needs. Be on guard, lest there be a thought of Belial in your heart, saying, the 7th year, the year of release, is near, and your eye is evil against your poor brother, and you give him naught. And he shall cry out to Yahweh against you, and it shall be a sin in you. You shall certainly give to him, and your heart should not be grieved when you give to him, because for this reason Yahweh your Elohim does bless you in all your works, and in all to which you put your hand, because the poor one does not cease from the land. Therefore I am commanding you, saying, you shall certainly open your hand to your brother, to your poor, and to your needy one in your land. When your brother is sold to you, a Hebrew man or a Hebrew woman, and shall serve you 6 years, then let him go free from you in the 7th year. And when you send him away free from you, let him not go away empty-handed. You shall richly supply him from your flock, and from your threshing floor, and from your winepress. With that which Yahweh has blessed you with, give to him. And you shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Mitzrayim, and Yahweh your Elohim ransomed you. Therefore I am commanding you this word today. And it shall be, when he says to you, I do not go away from you, because he loves you and your house, because it is good for him with you, then you shall take an awl, and thrust it through his ear to the door, and he shall be your servant forever. Do the same to your female servant. Let it not be hard in your eyes when you send him away free from you, for he has been worth a double hired servant in serving you 6 years, and Yahweh your Elohim shall bless you in all that you do. Set apart to Yahweh your Elohim all the firstborn males that come from your herd and your flock. Do not work with the firstborn of your herd, nor shear the firstborn of your flock. You and your household are to eat it before Yahweh your Elohim, year by year in the place which Yahweh chooses. But when there is any defect in it, lame or blind, or has any evil defect, do not slaughter it to Yahweh your Elohim. Eat it within your gates, the unclean and the clean alike, as the gazelle and as the deer. Only do not eat its blood. Pour it on the ground like water. Devarim chapter 16. Guard the new moon of Aviv, and perform the Pesach to Yahweh your Elohim. For in the new moon of Aviv, Yahweh your Elohim brought you out of Mitzrayim by night. And you shall slaughter the Pesach to Yahweh your Elohim from the flock and the herd, in the place where Yahweh chooses to put his name. Eat no leavened bread with it. For 7 days you eat unleavened bread with it, bread of affliction, because you came out of the land of Mitzrayim in haste, so that you remember the day in which you came out of the land of Mitzrayim all the days of your life. And no leaven should be seen with you in all your border for 7 days, neither should any of the meat which you slaughter in the evening on the first day stay all night until morning. You are not allowed to slaughter the Pesach within any of your gates which Yahweh your Elohim gives you, but at the place where Yahweh your Elohim chooses to make his name dwell. There you slaughter the Pesach in the evening, at the going down of the sun, at the appointed time you came out of Mitzrayim. And you shall roast and eat it in the place which Yahweh your Elohim chooses, and in the morning you shall turn and go to your tents. 6 days you eat unleavened bread, and on the 7th day there is a closing festival to Yahweh your Elohim. You do no work. Count 7 weeks for yourself. Begin to count 7 weeks from the time you begin to put the sickle to the grain. And you shall perform the festival of Shavuot to Yahweh your Elohim, according to the voluntary offerings from your hand, which you give as Yahweh your Elohim blesses you. And you shall rejoice before Yahweh your Elohim, you and your son and your daughter and your male servant and your female servant, and the Levite who is within your gates, and the stranger and the fatherless and the widow who are in your midst, at the place where Yahweh your Elohim chooses to make his name dwell. And you shall remember that you were a slave in Mitzrayim, and you shall guard and do these laws. Perform the festival of Sukkot for 7 days after the ingathering from your threshing floor and from your winepress. And you shall rejoice in your festival, you and your son and your daughter and your male servant and your female servant and the Levite and the stranger and the fatherless and the widow who are within your gates. For 7 days you shall celebrate to Yahweh your Elohim in the place which Yahweh chooses, because Yahweh your Elohim does bless you in all your increase and in all the work of your hands. And you shall be only rejoicing. 3 times a year all your males appear before Yahweh your Elohim in the place which he chooses, at the festival of Matzot, and at the festival of Shavuot, and at the festival of Sukkot. And none should appear before Yahweh empty-handed, but each one with the gift of his hand, according to the blessing of Yahweh your Elohim, which he has given you. Appoint judges and officers within all your gates, which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you, according to your tribes, and they shall judge the people with righteous right ruling. Do not distort right ruling. Do not show partiality, nor take a bribe, for a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and twists the words of the righteous. Follow righteousness, righteousness alone, so that you live and inherit the land which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you. Do not plant for yourself any tree as an Asherah near the slaughter place of Yahweh your Elohim that you make for yourself. And do not set up a pillar which Yahweh your Elohim hates. Devarim chapter 17. Do not slaughter to Yahweh your Elohim a bull or sheep which has any blemish, any evil matter, for that is an abomination to Yahweh your Elohim. When there is found in your midst, in any of your cities which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you, a man or a woman who does what is evil in the eyes of Yahweh your Elohim, in transgressing his covenant, and has gone and served other mighty ones, and bowed down to them, or to the sun, or to the moon, or to any of the host of the heavens, which I have not commanded, and it has been made known to you, and you have heard, and have searched diligently, then see, if true, the matter is confirmed that such an abomination has been done in Israel, then you shall bring out to your gates that man or woman who has done this evil matter, and you shall stone to death that man or woman with stones. At the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses shall he that is to die be put to death. He is not put to death by the mouth of 1 witness. The hand of the witnesses shall be first against him to put him to death, and the hand of all the people last. So you shall purge the evil from your midst. When any matter arises which is too hard for you to judge, between blood and blood, between plea and plea, or between stroke and stroke, matters of strife within your gates, then you shall rise and go up to the place which Yahweh your Elohim chooses, and shall come to the priests the Levites, and to the judge who is in those days, and shall inquire, and they shall declare to you the word of right ruling, and you shall do according to the word which they declare to you from that place which Yahweh chooses, and you shall guard to do according to all that they instruct you. Do according to the Torah in which they teach you, according to the right ruling which they say to you. You do not turn to the right or to the left from the word which they declare to you. And the man who acts arrogantly, so as not to listen to the priest who stands to serve there before Yahweh your Elohim, or to the judge, that man shall die. So you shall purge the evil from Israel, and let all the people hear and fear, and no longer do arrogantly. When you come to the land which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you, and shall possess it, and shall dwell in it, and you shall say, Let me set a sovereign over me like all the nations that are around me. You shall certainly set a sovereign over you, whom Yahweh your Elohim shall choose. Set a sovereign over you from among your brothers. You are not allowed to set a foreigner over you, who is not your brother. Only, he is not to increase horses for himself, nor cause the people to return to Mitzrayim to increase horses. For Yahweh has said to you, Do not return that way again. And he is not to increase wives for himself, lest his heart turn away, nor is he to greatly increase silver or gold for himself. And it shall be, when he sits on the throne of his reign, that he shall write for himself a copy of this Torah in a book, from the one before the priests, the Levites. And it shall be with him, and he shall read it all the days of his life, so that he learns to fear Yahweh his Elohim, and guard all the words of this Torah and these laws to do them, so that his heart is not lifted up above his brothers, and so as not to turn aside from the command, right or left, so that he prolongs his days in his reign, he and his children, in the midst of Israel. Devarim chapter 18. The priests, the Levites, all the tribe of Levi, have no part nor inheritance with Israel. They are to eat the offerings of Yahweh made by fire, and his inheritance. But among his brothers Levi has no inheritance. Yahweh is his inheritance, as he has spoken to him. And this is the priest's right from the people, from those who slaughter a slaughtering, whether it is bull or sheep. They shall give to the priest the shoulder, and the 2 cheeks, and the stomach, the first fruits of your grain, and your new wine, and your oil, and the first of the fleece of your sheep, you give to him. For Yahweh your Elohim has chosen him out of all your tribes, to stand to serve in the name of Yahweh, him and his sons forever. And when the Levite comes from one of your gates, from where he has sojourned among all Israel, and shall come with all the desire of his being to the place which Yahweh chooses, then he shall serve in the name of Yahweh, his Elohim, like all his brothers, the Levites, who are standing there before Yahweh. They are to have portion for portion to eat, besides what comes from the sale of his inheritance. When you come into the land which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you, do not learn to do according to the abominations of those nations. Let no one be found among you who makes his son or his daughter pass through the fire, or one who practices divination, or a user of magic, or one who interprets omens, or a sorcerer, or one who conjures spells, or a medium, or a pass through.
Hey guys, so we've gotten pretty close to the hour mark for how long this video is. I'm going to take the rest of this and put it inside this video, put it inside the show description, and I'll make it the first comment and pin it to the top of this video. But real quick, this last set of verses at Deuteronomy 18 makes the list of the things that Bethel is performing right now that comes out of the Kabbalah. These things are called abominations. This will be one of the next coming videos in the next few days that is the abominations that are being practiced at Bethel.
The fire, or one who practices to the land which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you. Do not learn to do according to the abominations of those nations. Let no one be found among you who makes his son or his daughter pass through the fire, or
passing between the fire tunnels that Bethel is doing.
One who practices divination.
Divination has to do with the treasure hunts that Bethel is doing.
Or a user of magic.
That has to do with everything that Bethel is doing that has to do with the semiotics and the sigil magic in the logos that they're using.
Or one who interprets omens. Or
Jen Johnson, when she was looking up at her light when she was 10 years old or 12 years old out inside the in the cul-de-sac that she was playing basketball in, said, God, if you're real, let the light blink 3 times. And because the light blinked 3 times, she became an omen reader. She also said, I picked out this pair of pants today having no idea that I was going to be talking about a sneaky blue spirit. she made an omen. Another time, she picked up some trash that she makes explanations all the time about how she is omen reading and calling that godliness.
A sorcerer, or
Sorcerers. Those are the people who are practicing the Kabbalah. That's all of the BSSM students who are being trained to participate as a Freemason that is now calling themselves a Christian.
one who conjures spells,
When Bill Johnson is saying, we need God, we need inheritance and more inheritance and this and this and this inside their prayers, and businesses and more businesses and greater this and great. That's him using a spell. They've pre-written that out and gotten the whole group to repeat the spell, the witch's spell.
or a medium, or a spiritist, or one who
Those are the people who are practicing the astrology stuff in Bethel. That includes the grave soaking. That includes the Enneagram. That includes Christ alignment tarot cards. All of those things have to do with the spiritist.
calls up the dead. For whoever does
And calls up the dead. That's the grave soaking.
these are an abomination to Yahweh, and because of those nations. Let no one be found among you
These are abominations to God.
portion to eat, besides what comes from the sale of his inheritance. When you come into the land which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you, do not learn to do according to the abominations of those nations. Let no one be found among you who makes his son or his daughter pass through the fire, or one who practices divination, or a user of magic, or one who interprets omens, or a sorcerer, or one who conjures spells, or a medium, or a spiritist, or one who calls up the dead. For whoever does these are an abomination to Yahweh, and because of these abominations, Yahweh your Elohim drives them out from before you. Be perfect before Yahweh your Elohim, for these nations whom you are possessing do listen to those using magic and to diviners. But as for you, Yahweh your Elohim has not appointed such for you. Yahweh your Elohim shall raise up for you a prophet like me from your midst, from your brothers. Listen to him, according to all you asked of Yahweh your Elohim in Horeb in the day of the assembly, saying, Let me not hear again the voice of Yahweh my Elohim, nor let me see this great fire any more, lest I die. And Yahweh said to me, What they have spoken is good. I shall raise up for them a prophet, like you, out of the midst of their brothers, and I shall put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak to them all that I command him. And it shall be, the man who does not listen to my words which he speaks in my name, I require it of him. But the prophet who presumes to speak a word in my name, which I have not commanded him to speak, or who speaks in the name of other mighty ones, even that prophet shall die. And when you say in your heart, How do we know the word which Yahweh has not spoken? When the prophet speaks in the name of Yahweh and the word is not, or comes not, that is the word which Yahweh has not spoken. The prophet has spoken it presumptuously.
That's all the prophets at Bethel who speak prophecies that don't come true, or if you listen to Mike Bickle, they come true 20% of the time. The other 80% of the time is just fluff. So we are not to listen to these people.
Do not be afraid of him. Devarim chapter 19. When Yahweh your Elohim.
Okay, guys. Remember that there are going to be some who are going to say, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, cast out spirits in your name, and do other mighty works in your name? And Yeshua is going to say to them, Depart from me, I never knew you, you who practice lawlessness. You who have thrown out the law of Torah will not recognize that these other people are leading you astray because you have no discernment. Discernment means that we use the words these people are saying, we run them through the scriptural gauntlet and make sure that what they are saying is actual words of Yeshua and not the vain words from their own imaginations that have been twisted and put the name of Jesus on what they're doing, regardless of the fact that these people are Luciferians who are trying to trick Christians into being Luciferians also. So, it's Friday. It's countdown for the Sabbath. I love you guys. Stay strong, stay sharp. There are lots of wolves in sheep's clothing who are trying to lead you astray.